A fundamental part of the pressure for censorship and deplatforming here on social media is the fear or apprehension that allowing people with dangerous ideas to come on social media will normalize those dangerous ideas. And the normalization is not something done by the broadcaster. It's something done by the audience. And this hasn't changed since the days of print media, long before there was such a thing as the internet or video sharing over the internet. Why are people afraid of allowing Onision to be on YouTube? Why do people want to deplatform Onision? Why are people afraid of allowing left-wing political radicals, communist extremists to be on YouTube? Part of the fear is that in the same way that a person who eats bacon and eggs for breakfast every day can come on YouTube and find a medical doctor who's willing to tell them through the camera, who's willing to reassure them that there's nothing unhealthy about eating bacon and eggs every day. Footnote, it's extremely unhealthy to eat bacon and eggs every day. It's extremely unhealthy to eat bacon and eggs ever. But nevertheless, here on the internet, here on social media, you can find reassuring excuses for your own bad behavior. You can have a completely artificial and false sense of community, and then within that phony community, you can feel that you're normal. It's normalizing for you because you've sought out, selected, and invested authority in those voices, right? So, I mean, someone who wants to lead the same kind of lifestyle Onision leads in terms of his sex life can find and fasten onto an example like Onision. And even if Onision is coming on camera and lamenting that his life is a disaster, that he's allowed his sex life to destroy him, even if he's lamenting that now he wants to go back to monogamy and just be with his wife, whom he calls his husband, even that people can react to in this normalizing, self-justifying way. This danger, I mean, what can I tell you? This defect in human reasoning, it existed long before the internet. My father was a compulsive liar, or worse. He was some kind of mythomaniac. He lied to everyone constantly. And I can remember one conversation one of many conversations where I challenged him on this directly. And I said to him, look, this is not normal behavior. The way you lied to me and the way you lied about me, I mean, as from father to son, that is not normal behavior. And you did this your entire life. You know, when I was a child, when I was a teenager, when I was in university. And you know who he answered back? He pointed to a famous Broadway play called Death of a Salesman. For his generation, that was an incredibly famous script. It was performed as a play. It was made into a hit movie. I think that movie won a bunch of Academy Awards. So today, that may not be that famous for people in the audience, but for your parents and grandparents, they all knew this hit play, Death of a Salesman. And my father justified his own behavior as normal by saying that he was no different from Willy Loman, the main character in Death of a Salesman. The main character of Death of a Salesman is a compulsive liar. He lies to everyone constantly. And the play or the movie, it doesn't celebrate this. It doesn't present it as something normal or positive or good. It is presented as pathetic and tragic. And we're really shown a father compulsively lying to his own son, to his own sons, plural. He has several sons in the film. We're shown a father manipulating and deceiving his sons for his own kind of ego reasons. In some ways, it's a psychologically stirring and disturbing portrait of a certain type of personality. All right? And my father finds that play, finds that movie, and latches onto it and uses it to normalize himself. And he said to me, deadpan serious, that, you know, this shows that his type of behavior is normal and always has been normal. He looked for that throughout the political history of humanity, in fiction and nonfiction. He looked for characters he could relate to. In the same way that someone trying to justify eating bacon every day can come on YouTube and find the one medical doctor out of 10,000 who will lie to you and say that bacon is healthy, that eggs is healthy. There are medical doctors who say cholesterol is healthy. It's just not true. It's just not true. But sure, you can find one doctor out of 1,000 or maybe one doctor out of 10,000 who genuinely believes that, genuinely has that erroneous belief. And then people can latch onto that and normalize their own behavior. I'm going to come back to Onision and his sex life. When I look at the left-wing extremists within the Bernie Sanders camp who've just been exposed, look, these people are not real gangsters. These people are not real revolutionaries. Real gangsters do not come on social media and talk about doing dirt. That part of their lives is secret. They don't talk to anybody about it, ever. They take it to their graves, or maybe they talk about it as old men when they're retired, okay? People who do real things do not come on social media and talk about it. Likewise, people who would actually be organizing and engaged in the kind of illegal revolutionary activities these guys are talking about, or say communist espionage or what have you, they do not talk about it. So what are we looking at when we see what I think of sincerely? I think of these people sincerely as dangerous people with dangerous ideas on the left-wing extreme who are coming on YouTube. I think I'm looking at people who have normalized this behavior through watching YouTube videos of other left-wing extremists. They've repeated this script again and again, all this stuff about gulags and guillotines and burning down cities and the workers taking over the means of production. They have a whole script, and they've found other people they can talk to, in chat forums, in Reddit groups, Discord servers, Skype, but, social media like YouTube and YouNow and live streaming. They found those few other people they can latch onto. And again, you can't even blame the broadcaster entirely, because most of this is coming from the audience. It's the audience reaching out to that, latching onto it, and normalizing that behavior. And it doesn't even matter to them with their mentality if what's being depicted is a tragedy and a failure. They will look at the total failures of communism. They'll look at millions of people starving to death. It's just total failure. And they will treat it in their minds as a positive example to justify their own attitudes, to justify their own passions, if you like, to justify their own bad behavior, in the same way that my father is able to completely overlook that the death of a salesman is not a happy story. It's not a comedy, it's a tragedy. Specifically, it's the tragedy of a guy who is living a lie, lying to himself, lying to others, very deceptive, manipulative, a compulsive liar, whatever you want to say. That it's showing how tragic that mentality, how horrible this life is, and how it, in many ways has a kind of dementing and awful effect on his sons, on his own children. My father finds that play, and he finds it in a justification for the fact that he lied to me. He says to me, it's okay that he lied to me and that he lied about me, that he this way his whole life, even on this intimate scale, not just that he lied to people at work as part of his career. No, that he had these lies within his whole family. It's okay because he found this tragedy, this play that shows how awful it is to have a family built on lies, and he sees that as good. In the same way, the communist revolutionaries will look at, whether it's a documentary or what have you, about the collapse of communism, the deaths of millions, whether they're looking at YouTube videos about people going to prison for stupid, terrorist activities that didn't help anyone and ended up ruining people's lives or killing people or what have you, and they'll latch onto that to normalize their own bad behavior, all right? Likewise, there are some people, and guys, it's not just celebrities who have this option of, there are some people who will look at the lifestyle Onision has and will latch onto that to justify what they want to do with their own sex lives. This is true. And this is part of the moral panic, part of people wanting to deplatform Onision. All right? Really basic facts. Onision had a much younger wife. She very rapidly got pregnant with and gave birth to 2 children. She was a teen mom. She gave birth to both kids when she was still a teenager. And then she went into university. Onision says he spent more than $100,000 of his own money on university tuition for her to get a BA. These days, being a full-time university student is not compatible with raising 2 small children, at least one of whom would have been a newborn baby during that time when she went to university. Okay? They have a powerful motivation not just to bring in a second woman, I guess I should say, whatever. Not just to be in a three-way relationship for the sake of sex. They need babysitters. They need people to come and live with them and take care of their kids because the mother is out going to university all day, every day, and she's got to do homework and study for exams, okay? I completely disagree with what these guys did. I completely morally disapprove with what these guys did. Guess what? I can imagine being in a similar scenario and making similar ethical compromises, like coming up with a justification. My girlfriend is much younger than me. She wants to get pregnant and have a kid. Is it hard to think through that my girlfriend would also either have a job or be attending classes at university? And she says, hey, we really need someone to help us take care of the baby. Oh, gee, you have all these fans from YouTube. One of them will be very happy to come and move into the spare room in our apartment or the spare room in our house and help take care of the kid and, whatever. We can all share the kitchen. It'll be great. Yeah. I would never make the unethical decisions Onision made. But still, my point is here, the kind of temptation, justifying for yourself the series of steps, the series of decisions Onision made. It's something you and the audience could do. You don't need to be a millionaire. You don't need to be amazingly famous. Just in its broad outlines, the decisions he made, partly motivated by sex, partly motivated by convenience, partly motivated by money and fame, but above all else, motivated by the need to have a live-in babysitter help take care of your kids, all right? Maybe someone to help you make YouTube videos also. Those are temptations we deal with, and there will be people who latch onto it, his example, and they use it to normalize their own behavior, right? But we also have to consider the potential, the positive potential of allowing dangerous people with dangerous ideas to come on the internet to abnormalize their behavior, to allow us to sit and analyze what they've done wrong, for us in the audience to look at that and think, whoa, I would never make the same mistakes he made. Whoa, I would never make those moral compromises. Whoa, I would never make excuses for what Joseph Stalin did. Whoa, I would never make excuses for putting people in the gulag, decapitating people with the guillotine. Whoa. And we can't measure the number of people who respond to that negative example in that way. So I've been talking about left-wing extremists, the communists, people justifying mass murder, mass starvation, economic failure, and revolution from that side. Obviously, a similar drama plays out with right-wing extremists and just miscellaneous terrorists who come on the internet, right? But isn't there some value in allowing those voices, not as selectively quoted and misrepresented by the news broadcaster, but allowing those voices to speak in their own terms, right, without editing from the editorial committee at a newspaper or at a TV station, how they want to present it. Hearing those people present their own ideas, however insane, however incoherent, however immoral, so that people in the audience can sit there and look at this and say, not normalize it, but abnormalize it, fully recognize what's wrong with this, and think, wow, not me. I'm not going to be like that. Feel the depth of alienation, the difference between me and this person, right? The main reason I wanted to make videos about Onision from the jump, from day one, was not to damage Onision, was not to take something away from his life, right? But to add something to my own life, to add something to your lives, so that we can reflect on our own lives and the moral choices we've got to make and the knock-on consequence of that, and think, wow, not me. This is where I'm different from him. This is where I wouldn't have done what he did. This is where I wouldn't have made this excuse. I wouldn't have told this to myself. I wouldn't have told this to the girl. Yeah. This is, where you really feel the depth of that difference, of that divide. You really, get to stare into the abyss of the alienation between yourself and that other person. And I don't think the news can do that for you. I don't. I think this is part of the wonderful thing about this kind of broadcasting. It's true. It's dangerous to have millions of people signing up for and latching onto these extremist voices on the left wing. And I see it happening both positively and negatively. Really briefly, there's a left-wing communist channel called Mexi, and she was presenting herself as being full communist, pro-revolution, pro-mass murder, up until a point. She hit a breaking point, and she said, look, she's not really that left-wing. Number of viewers collapses. Okay, this just happened recently. You can check her channel and see what happened with that. Anyway, she came out of the closet saying, look, she's not really cool with the revolution. She's not really cool with mass murder. She's not really cool with rounding up rich people and forcing them into re-education camps, gulags. She's not cool with it. She admits that, and we see her audience collapse from like 30,000 people a video to 10,000, 12,000, something. Okay. On the other hand, I see a channel that is overtly pro-violence called Non-Compete. And I see his audience growing and growing, and he openly says that what he wants is to destroy democracy, to destroy capitalism. He wants to force people into re-education camps. He says he'll abolish the police, but then if you listen to what he's saying, he's only going to replace the police with an even more tyrannical and terrible form of social policing, where it's going to be a citizens committee that goes around and does all the things the police do and much more, and puts people into prisons for their thought crimes and so on. This is just reinventing tyranny with new names, new nomenclature, new labels put over the Gestapo, put over, the Russian public security forces. In Russia, they kept changing the name every couple of years because the Cheka and, the earlier terms became notorious. So they kept putting a new name on it until you end up with the KGB in the end. These are new names for familiar forms of tyrannical oppression, all right? I see the danger in it, and I have directly spoken to and interacted with the type of people who were just exposed by Project Veritas within the Bernie Sanders campaign who have really normalized this script. A script that ethically and morally is tantamount to being a Nazi. It's morally equivalent to being a Holocaust denier and being pro-mass murder and pro-genocide. It's that bad. We're talking about left-wing extremism so bad, it's comparable to right-wing fascist extremism. No doubt. Okay? It's a huge danger. But how do we measure the value of allowing dangerous people with dangerous ideas to be here on the internet as a negative example for us to respond to analytically and negatively? Because 99% of the audience goes to see Willy Loman, Death of a Salesman. It's the drama I mentioned earlier. 99% of the audience goes to see that play or goes to see that movie and thinks, wow, this shows the tragedy of living a lie, of lying to your own children, of being manipulative, of being caught in this myth-making mentality. Wow, the moral of this story is, I have to be honest even when it hurts me, even when it's inconvenient for me. The moral of this story is, it's so important to be honest with yourself and others, even with your own family, even on the intimate scale, or else this is the tragedy that plays out, right? Like optimism isn't an excuse for dishonesty, right? You have to face up to the reality of your life, economically, in the business world, and also on the intimate scale of husband and wife, father and son. That's the moral of the play. 99% of people understood that. And my father is part of the lunatic 1% or less who take the exact opposite moral of the story. All right? If we have real freedom of speech for people to upload their experiences with communist extremism, right-wing extremism, every kind of bad and dangerous idea, if we have the freedom for Onision to upload his ridiculous experience with destroying his marriage, with letting his sex life destroy his whole life and so on, if we have that freedom, then we also have the positive potential for you and I in the audience to learn from that negative example and live our own lives from this day forward accordingly.